This is Slickery Trigger for Rebel Road Tactical. With proper care and feeding, your pistol will be ready when you need it. There to save your life. Shouldn't your gear be that good? Whether you need a holster for comfortable everyday carry or a tough-as-nails holster for your next training course, Rebel Road Tactical has what you need. Check us out on the web at rebelroadtactical.com.
Is debt beating you down? You need discipline. You need the Debt Ninja. If you've been caught in a financial trap and need to be set free, then you need the Debt Ninja. Want to stop those harassing collection calls, start saving thousands in interest and fees, and get out of debt fast? Then you need to call the Debt Ninja. The Debt Ninja will find the best companies across the country that will help you consolidate all your bills into one easy payment, reduce your payments by 30 to 50%, and get you out of debt fast. If you have unsecured debt of $10,000 or more, such as credit cards, loans, or medical bills, call the Debt Ninja for a free 15-minute consultation.
Call 800-826-1246. 800-826-1246. That's 800-826-1246. Call today.
The Debt Ninja.
In these uncertain economic times, you've got to do whatever you can to save money. One of our biggest expenses can be our cars, especially when unexpected repair bills hit. Not anymore. If you own a vehicle with less than 130,000 miles, is less than 12 years old, has a warranty about to expire, or even no warranty at all, you could stop paying for car repairs. Roadside assistance, towing, and rental coverage are all included. Don't wait for the next repair. Make one free call right now to see if you qualify. If your vehicle is less than 12 years old, has less than 130,000 miles, even if it's out of warranty, paying for car repairs can become a thing of the past. Call us right now and get your car protected before your next repair bill hits. Get protection and no more repair bills. Call 800-696-1030. Again, 800-696-1030. That's 800-696-1030. 800-696-1030.
All writers are prone to becoming so attached to our characters and stories that we struggle to see why a passage may not be working. It takes another set of eyes to help us nurture our writing to full maturity. At Black Wolf Editorial Services, we strive to enable writers to develop and grow, shaping stories into masterpieces that can stand the test of time. Editing services are provided for all genres and all age categories. Services range from critiques of the short story through to the line edits of the full-length novel and copy editing for those preparing for publication. We also offer assistance on generating a writer's bio for your websites, as well as help with those book blurbs and promotional material. We won't abandon you to the masses. We want to celebrate with you in your successes. Black Wolf Editorial Services, nurturing your writing into maturity. For a full list of services and prices, visit us at blackwolfeditorial.com.
You're listening to the Spark Radio Network, internet radio like you've never heard before. Innovation, creativity, and imagination are all said to begin with a spark. So fasten your seatbelt and take the ride of your life and listen for the spark.
You are listening to KLRN Radio, where liberty and reason still reign.
Sometimes we need to slow down and remember the simple pleasures in life. Good coffee, good books, and good company. Come on in. Take a seat. The coffee's just been brewed. Let's see who we have in the coffee shop today.
All right, as I look around the coffee shop, I've got two people today. I've got Judy Elmore, and Amy Paulson. And they're both writers. And I see they've got their laptops, and they're hard at work in the coffee shop. How are you two doing? And what has you pounding the keyboard like your hair's on fire?
I don't know if I'm with the hair on fire or not, but we're getting ready for NaNoWrimo. For those who don't know, NaNoWriMo. It stands for the National Novel Writers Month, and it's an international event where those that sign themselves to writing 50,000 words of a novel within the span of 1st of November to the 30th of November. So this is going to be fun.
Okay, wait a minute. 50,000 words, 30 days.
Yep.
Have you lost your mind?
Nope.
Yes, she has, but that's not why.
Okay. Okay, you're talking to someone who I write tweets. I tried NaNoWrimo. I've never done well. I'm toying with the idea of trying it again this year, but don't count on it. And I barely usually get past the 20,000 mark.
Yeah, well, I mean, you've described to us the size of your show prep. I think probably it's a matter of choosing one or the other. Like, to do NaNoWrimo, you do have to cull some of the other stuff. You know, there's only so much time in a month, in a day. And, yeah, it does take time, but it gets... there are some days where you can get quite a lot of words done in quite a short period of time once you've gotten to the habit of writing every day. Like, if you sit down at your desk at the same time every day, you will, you know, you might be like, I have no idea what I'm going to write until you sit down and start typing. And then it's like you step out and the bridge appears, you know, you show up at the desk and the muse appears. And not every day, but once you are in that habit, it does get easier and more efficient. Yeah.
Well, I will say my show prep, as involved as it may sound, it used to take me 3 hours of everybody leave me alone to prep for a 1 hour show. Now, the hardest part is getting the audio clips ready, and that takes about 30 to 40 minutes. And the rest of it I can have done in another 30 to 40 minutes. So I'm down to about an hour 20.
Yeah, okay. Well, I mean, in a good hour of writing, once I'm like in flow, just to sound like a total hippie, I can probably write 1,000 words. But I'm a planner, so I tend to have a pretty good idea of where I'm going in my story. I tend to have not every scene planned out, but I tend to have an ending pretty clear in my head, and then I tend to have a bunch of obstacles, things that are going to get in the way and cause conflict. So when I get stuck, I tend to just try and jump ahead to the next spanner in the works, and that usually gives me material. So I'm not, when I arrive at the page, I'm not sort of going, what shall I write about today? And starting from scratch, I've already got a character who's usually in a big pile of trouble already. And people who don't like each other or disagree about stuff, I mean, they have plenty to say to one another because they're angry or they're confused or, you know, and it's not too tricky. Most days. There are days where it is really, really hard. But
so Judy, do you plan out all your writing too?
Judy or me?
Judy.
Me? No, I don't. I'm the other sort of, well, not quite the other spectrum.
Extreme. Yeah.
The other extreme is what we call the pantser, where they literally just sit at the keyboard and they just write whatever happens to come into the mind. Doesn't even matter if it's related, and it is literally writing by the seat of the pants. And a pantser they have no clue what they're going to write or what sort of story they're going to write when they start that writing process. I will have at least an idea of where I want to go and what sort of type of story I actually want to write, because I'm a character person. I like writing with the character in mind. So I will have that character sort of sitting there and things go. But I don't actually have anything totally planned at all. I really have no clue who my characters are going to meet. I've got no idea character is going to go to that village or is going to go to the shop or where they're going to go. And I don't know if I'm going to wind up blowing up as a town or anything until I've actually done it. So no, my writing is a lot more of the pantser style than it is the plotting style. So it is a bit of a different concept.
That sounds like kind of how I do my show. I know that because my regular show, not this one's my, I interview authors, and I do just kind of let these, I have no idea where they're going to take the conversation. I look through their book blurb, their bio. If I was given their book, I'll thumb through some of it, but that's about all I do, and I let them steer the conversation. With my regular show, I cover international affairs and current events. Well, I kind of know, all right, these are the major things going on outside the U.S. And I do try and stay away from U.S. politics. So you will not hear me talk about the election on my regular show. I mean, there may be a comment like, oh, well, this candidate spoke out against North Korea's recent missile launch. But,
right, yeah, because it's not like the two things are mutually exclusive. But, I mean, a big part of the election is about how the two candidates are going to respond to international politics, or it should be.
Right, but it's not the feature of my show.
Exactly. Yeah. So, but you can't, just not touch it. Well, it'd be nice if you could, but...
But it's one of those things of, I'm more likely to be able to tell you what the politics are in Turkey than I am my own country. So I kind of know where I'm going, but I know what part of the world I'm looking for. I know what the overall subjects are out there, because that doesn't take long. You just literally go, what's going on in the world today?
Yeah. I mean, but basically writing a story, there's no right or wrong on how you write a story. And I think that's what Nanowrimo is about. It's everybody coming in from all the different ways that you do writing. And you sort of determine exactly what's going to work for you and what's not going to work for you. And I know of some people that have actually planned out these entire novels, these bits and pieces. And then November 1st came, they started writing, and they're just like, hang on, that's not the story I had planned. Well, okay, we are just going to go with it. And they sort of discovered that they're not a plotter, they're actually a pantser. And those plotted novels that they had didn't work. But then I also know some other people on the other flip side where they decided, I'm not going to plot anything whatsoever. I'm just going to see what happens. And then they stare at the screen going, no, this isn't working.
Or what they start doing when they're staring at the screen is actually planning. I mean,
yeah.
I think one of the things with planning is I don't know of any writers who plan novels and then write them as planned. Nobody does that, because when you start writing a novel, you don't know your characters yet. And character-driven books are the goal, right? I mean, you want the characters to make sense, to be believable, real, relatable. Well, people that you can think of as real people, because otherwise you're not going to care about them, because otherwise you're going to be thinking this is a made-up character. You want to be so deep in that book you forget they're made up. That's the goal, right? So you're trying to write someone really real, and as you write the book the first time, the first draft, you are still getting to know them. I mean, no matter how well you kind of prep your characters by, finding photos or doing elaborate histories or bios or whatever, all of that stuff, until you've actually put them in a room and had them interact with someone else, it's until you're writing that first draft, you haven't met them yet. You've read about them on Wikipedia, when you're writing your first draft, you get to know your characters, and about halfway through the first draft, that's when the characters, you know them well enough to write them believably, consistently, and really understand their motives and everything. And then when you go back to edit is when you make your characters more consistent at the start. But what that means is that your plan has to have room in it for change. And often with mine, I know it doesn't usually change the outcome, but it does change how they get there. Because I realized partway through the story that someone won't respond to one of the obstacles I've kind of thought about. They won't respond the way I expect them to, and the way they respond creates a different obstacle. Or someone will do something and create another obstacle just because of who they are and how they feel about their situation. They will act in a way I didn't foresee because I didn't know them yet.
I think I would agree with that. Totally.
Okay, now, Judy, you mentioned, or one of you mentioned something about Nano that you said part of a novel. So, part?
Well, it's 50,000 words. 50,000 words is about the length of a Mills and Boon paperback, like a Harlequin romance, so it's quite short for a novel. If you're writing other genres, they're almost all longer than that. For a thriller or mystery or women's fiction, you're looking at 70,000 normally, minimum, or roundabouts that. And then for a first novel, most publishers won't even look at you if it's over 100,000 words. Obviously,
Again,
if you're doing high fantasy and stuff like that, they do tend to be longer. But even with fantasy, for first novels, if you're going down the traditional publishing route, you won't get a look in if it's over 100,000 words, because that's just an awful lot of printing money to spend on someone that's not a sure thing yet. So
The thing that's funny about that is it does depend on what flavor of fantasy as well. Because if you're talking about science fiction,
there's a lot of variety within, but regardless of your genre, 50,000
can get away with up to 120. Yeah.
50,000 is very short. Yeah.
Let's put that in real perspective. Okay, Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. When in some countries it was called Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. That script or that book, the published version, is just over 74,000 words. So
so even young adult books are usually longer.
Okay, so, and correct me if I'm wrong, Harry Potter was a young adult book?
Yeah. So middle grade books, 50,000 is usually the limit for the next reading bracket below young adult. 50,000 words would be the top of that. So if you're writing a middle grade book, it's a finished book. I often try and write the end within NaNoWriMo because there's something because of this intense kind of deadline of NaNoWriMo, it does, I do write all year round, and I write probably slightly slower than NaNoWriMo, but not dramatically different. Like, my routine in writing is not dramatically different. But in November, there is this real, there's a community around it, and there's a real push, and there's an intensity that you don't have the rest of the year. And if you get to the end of November and you haven't finished the story, even if you've hit your 50,000, if you haven't finished your story, it can be quite hard to keep going because there's kind of this feeling of you've hit the finish line. So I always try, and even if I just skip a bit, write the ending within November, which often means that I end up writing 56,000 words just because I want to get that bit done. And I often end up ending as the second everything's over, I stop, whereas in the actual finished rewritten book, there'll be another denouement, another scene after that.
So Judy, do you write year-round as well?
Yeah, I do. I mean, as probably the listeners of KLRNRadio know, I'm such a busy person. I'm a freelance editor, so I'm doing a lot of editing. And of course, I've got my own show on the KLRN Radio, Conversations in Science. But I am a writer as well. So I try to do as much writing as I possibly can all year round. I have to admit, this last month, I haven't actually done a hell of a lot of writing, because I have been pushing myself to get all of my blog posts and everything written, all the shows for this radio station and everything just out of the way for the rest of the year. So that way, come November, I can go 100% flat tack on the new novel that I've got whizzing around in my head. And so that way I can have that story. I'm like Amy. It's not satisfying to me if I just leave it at 50,000 words. I know I'm going to be looking at something that needs to be of the longer word length. So for me, 50,000 words is nothing. I will literally deliberately just write the story. Doesn't matter how many words there are. I have to admit, a couple of years ago, I did exactly that, and I finished my novel project, and I was at 80,000 words. That was just within NaNoWrimo, within the month of November.
That's amazing.
80,000 words, 30 days. Oh my God.
Yeah, that's just what I did. But I actually can type as fast as I can think. So if I can actually sort of talk it out and just sort of talk it out with somebody, and I'm literally, because I do a lot of acting when I'm writing. Well, I'm sure if anybody came in while I was actually in full writing mode, they would think I was probably completely and utterly mad, because I'm literally talking with my characters and just carrying on, and I'm literally just typing that whole conversation. And that's why I do actually type rather than handwrite, because I can.
Yeah, I can type faster than I can handwrite. Although I have been known to write almost whole novels handwriting, just because we're traveling or for whatever reason computers aren't really an option, or I've started in a notebook and the kids I've got a 4-year-old and a 5-year-old, and if they're just full on, then I can take my notebook and go and hide in bed and write without having to sort out, a laptop or anything. I can just do it on the fly without them really realizing. Whereas, so I do think that handwriting accesses a different part of your brain. if I'm stuck on a computer, like if I'm writing on a computer and I'm kind of hitting a wall and it's just not flowing. If I go and handwrite, often that'll get me past it. And the other way around, actually, if I'm handwriting and just going, ugh, I'm stupid, this is inane, then if I go and sit at a computer, it's like it finds me in a different place. I don't know. I can't explain it. But I think there is some research on handwriting accessing a different part of your brain than computers, so.
Well,
probably.
First of all, I will never write by hand. You can't read it half the time. I can't read my own handwritten notes. And if I can't read it, how can I expect anybody else to ever figure it out? And how can I get it out of chicken scratch mode, which literally sometimes looks like wingdings or Chinese cryptography, into...
Yeah, I did once, the book actually that I'm like closest to publishing, I wrote the first draft of the first, well, what I thought was the whole thing, but has actually turned out to be like the first 2/3. While we were on a road trip, we were living in France, so we did a road trip that went through Switzerland, top of Italy, up through Austria, and back through the south of Germany, and then back to where we were living in France. And it was like over 3 weeks. And while we were driving on these big highways, the speed limit's like 130k, and we were in a company car, like a lease, so it was really new, and like it was so smooth on those roads that I could write while we were driving. On New Zealand roads, I get car sick because if I look down like that, because they're so narrow and windy and bumpy. And yeah, but it was amazing. I wrote most of that book while driving around Europe. It was amazing.
Okay, time for confession. Here we go. My first novel, that I wrote, it wasn't actually the first one that I've actually got completed. It was actually, turns out it's actually the third book in my series that I've been working on. But when I started writing it, it was 100% handwritten while I was on the bus to and from work. And I had my young daughter next to me. At the time, she would have been maybe 2 or 3. And we were just taking the bus to and from the university. And the reason why I did it that way is because I was working as a researcher at the time, struggling with the computer, fighting with the computer on a regular basis, doing coding, data analysis, full scale, very much things. There was no way any computer was ever going to see my manuscript, ever. So I wrote the whole thing out by hand, that first draft, the entire thing. And when I finished my thesis, my PhD thesis, I said, okay, it's time to type it in. And I typed in the entire thing. And I didn't bother printing it out because it was over 1,000 pages of single-spaced that I had handwritten. So,
whoa, okay, whoa. 1,000 pages.
That is a lot. Yeah.
It was insane. It was over 1,000 pages of handwritten single.
Wait, was that your thesis?
No, that was actually the first. That was my novel.
Yeah. Crazy.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the way it just came about.
Sorry?
And it was just literally the way it came about was I just started writing a scene. And so this was the true pantster coming through. I just started writing a scene, and then I would ask myself and go, oh, hang on. I've got big bad guys over here, and they've got armies. Oh, no, my good guys have got to go have an army. Oh, look at that. There we go. We're going to start writing about an army from the good guys now. So that was the true pantster coming through. But, of course, now that was like, you're talking about 6, maybe 7 years ago that was like that.
So
and
you've been writing
now
for
I've
7
actually
years?
refined how I'm doing things now.
Judy, you've been writing for 7 years?
I've actually been writing for about 9 now, actually. Yeah.
I mean, I think writing every day, like properly committed as if it's my job, it's probably more like 5 or 6 for me. But I finished my first, I thought I'd finished my first novel when I was like 15. Then I typed it up and it was really short and I was gutted. But yeah, I mean, I kind of want to call that my first novel because I thought it was. There was enough story for it to be a novel. I just written really short. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
mean, that's why Amy and I think we're going to be working well. Both Amy and I are the Christchurch, for Christchurch, New Zealand, the municipal, put the tongue back in, the municipal liaisons for Nanowrimo. And so basically it's our job to actually give you the support as a writer that you need to connect with other writers. And because writing is actually quite isolatory, you can actually feel quite isolated. And Christchurch has actually got an amazing network of writers that we write so many different things. I mean, Amy's in a completely different genre than I am, but yet we both understand this whole concept about building the worlds and what it's like, what you actually need to do, the process. And so we're there to just help everybody else get that traction and just understand and where to go. And the thing that's cool about NaNoWriMo is there's no commitment in the sense of that you have to publish or no, there's none of that. This is literally just you taking a personal challenge and actually writing something. Fulfilling that
I think there's almost the opposite pressure that, well, from the official NaNoWriMo thing, there's you get when you finish, there's a few perks, and one of them is, I think, a discount or a free create space print, like you can print a copy of your book, but there is a lot of advice that says don't publish because it's your first draft. After 30 days, it's not ready. You have to revise it before it's ready to publish, and probably you have to get some feedback from a reader and revise again at the very minimum. And professional editing is something I would say is absolutely essential. But that's
Amy, you know what you could do? With your very first novel, you said it's not really long. Maybe you could turn it into a short story and publish that with your free Create Space coupon.
Oh no!
At least get it professionally printed.
Was I actually have rewritten it as a novel last NaNoWriMo, but there were a couple of things from that I kept and developed it quite a lot and changed it. Yeah. So it sort of has some similar key like character elements, but I had come up with like a new version of it when I was reading over the old one, and I was like, hey, I could do this with this. I've written 9 actual manuscripts since then, none of which have been published, but a couple of them are really close, and several of which I kind of I see as just learning. But through all of that, I've learned a heap, right? Of course. And so now I look back at it and go, oh, I know what this could be, maybe. And I see potential. But yeah, I've rewritten it completely as almost something else. Other people might not even see it recognizable. But no one's going to see that first one, so it doesn't matter.
Okay, so Judy, are you published or not yet?
Not yet. No.
Okay.
And I'm like Amy. I've put myself in this. I've set my personal standard really high, and it's just me being who I am. I have to admit, I'm a perfectionist, and I look back at everything that I've done, and I realize for myself, setting that standard really high for myself has actually just made me grow and develop and become that much stronger. And it's actually led towards other opportunities that I never knew I could actually potentially do, like the freelance editing. I seem to have a knack of actually going, no, that story doesn't work because of this, and this. And so I've managed to develop and really hone those skills. And I do actually now have a manuscript that I would be more than happy to see it in print. My issue, we were talking about it before, about the word counts, that debut writers, publishers don't like word counts being too high. And that's unfortunately the situation that I found myself in, because the manuscript that I've got is 134,000 words. And for a high fantasy, if you're more than 120,000 words, you really have to have something absolutely stellar before they'll even look at you. And I'm sure my manuscript is there. I'm quite happy that it is probably stellar. I mean, hey, delusions of grandeur, why not? But I've decided that I'm just going to shelve everything to make it just that much easier, and I'm going to write a new manuscript, new set of characters that is a complete standalone, and I'm going to aim to get that. So that's my Nanowrimo project for this year. It's a new novel, new everything, new set of characters, standalone, not a series.
Yeah, I think you have to be quite aware of the industry when you're going out. I mean, or prepared for quite a bit of rejection. I mean, I don't think I was very aware of the industry when I started submitting to literary agents. But of course, I had a lot to learn. And it was my 8th manuscript out of 9, which doesn't include that first one because really it wasn't long enough to count as a novel. But yeah, the 8th one is the one that found me a literary agent. And that one was 96,000 words. I was asked by a publisher to revise it and cut 10,000. And once she'd sort of said what kinds of things she was looking for, I actually ended up cutting 13,000. And then the literary agent wanted to see another 10,000 cut. And based on her advice, ended up cutting another 13,000. Like, not on purpose. I wasn't, but that's how it happened. And yeah, so that's the other thing is if you have something that's quite long and you force yourself to shorten it so that you get it under that 100K limit, just being prepared that the publisher or the agent or both may turn around and say, I would like to see you cut another 10,000 words. And they might give you some pointers on what kinds of things to cut, which does really help. Because obviously if you cut as much as you can yourself, it's really helpful to have someone else say, these are the kinds of things you could get rid of that wouldn't hurt the book. That's so helpful. But yeah, you have to be, if you're going to go down the traditional route, you have to be really prepared to listen to editorial advice and make changes, and you can't be precious about it. It's not your baby, Like, it feels like it sometimes, but you have to be a bit savvy, a bit brutal, and know that this is an industry. There are other people involved in writing a book. If you are going the traditional route, you have to play ball with those other people.
Okay, whoa. Amy, you mentioned you got a literary agent. What genre?
It's women's fiction, romance, women's fiction. So it's kind of
oh wow,
bit of either, bit of both. It's probably going to go more down the romance path because that was if we go with the publisher we're thinking about going with.
Okay, well, yeah. Amy, first of all, when you have a date that book is coming out, you
have to get a publisher first. But yeah, okay.
But when you get that date, I expect you back on Coffee Shop for an interview.
Okay. Yeah, sure. Yeah, so I'm on the last. So at the beginning of this whole thing, you asked us what we were busy working away on at the moment, and that's what I'm doing. That's what the literary agent has said. It's the last round of fixes, which is not big things now. Although there's a couple of scenes where it's quite dramatic, but yeah. Hopefully, fingers crossed. She did say the last round after this will be ready. So hopefully she wasn't just trying to make me feel better.
All right, so Judy, you mentioned that you guys try and encourage writers to actually reach that 50,000 goal mark and develop the writing habits. How do you do this?
Well, there's a variety of different tricks that we will do. During November, we've got a variety of different write-ins scheduled. And these are basically where people can come in to wherever the settings are and just sit with other writers and write. Because sometimes it's that pressure of seeing somebody else writing that you go, oh, maybe I should just be writing. Maybe I should be doing this and not surfing the internet, not checking my Facebook, not checking the Twitter, checking email. When you've got that pressure, sometimes that it just gives you that added check and balance that's there. We've also got some virtual write-ins planned, and that's going to be so much fun because we've got that one. That is a virtual chat room that we have set up and we've organized with other municipal liaisons throughout the world as well. So we've got them in the States, we've got them in California and in North Carolina. We've also got them in Australia. And then, of course, ourselves here in New Zealand. So it's going to be so much fun. And I checked into the room the other day and we had somebody from Alaska signing in. So it's literally going to be totally international. And I'm just looking so much forward to doing these virtual write-ins. It's going to be good.
All right.
Yeah, you don't always
disclosure.
write like at the same time of day. Like sometimes you'll be writing at a time when no one else in New Zealand is awake. But that person in Alaska is so going to be awake.
Exactly. And again, it just gives you that checks and balance. It's that pressure, that peer pressure. It's good, healthy peer pressure.
Well, the thing is, the person sitting opposite you isn't putting any pressure on you, of course, because they couldn't give a flying anything whether or not you are writing. Like, they don't care. But just having someone else there, it's like accountability. I mean, they can't, most of the time when I'm writing with other people, they can't even see my screen, they're on the other side of the table. I can be on Twitter. They don't know, they don't care. But the fact that I hear them writing away, and hell, I don't know, maybe they're on Twitter, but I can hear their keyboard, and it's like, oh, they're getting lots of work done. And it just makes me want to also be getting lots of work done because I'm there as a writer and I feel like a phony if I'm not writing. Whereas when I'm at home, nobody knows. Nobody can, I don't know. I don't feel the same kind of, it's not really pressure. I don't know. I don't feel the same kind of obligation to be who I claim to be when I'm in my own home. But when I'm out, when I'm with other writers, especially at like an official write-in at a library. Yeah, I mean, I do them all year round. I'm part of a group called Word by Word, based on that book by Anne Lamott. Her book is called Bird by Bird, and it's about writing, but we call our group Word by Word. And we just meet every Tuesday from 9 till midday and write at a library.
Well, that's cool. That's cool.
Yeah.
Now,
it is good. It's like a weekly thing. There's a couple of people who meet on Thursdays as well. But, and I know Judy's group, so Judy and I each kind of run separate writing groups the rest of the year round. She's the Writers Guild and mine's the Christchurch branch of the New Zealand Society of Authors. So, yeah, the Writers Guild have their own Tuesday night thing, and the Society of Authors one is during the day. But, I mean, there are other things going on in the city, but those ones are open to anyone who wants to join in, which is nice, I think.
Well, I've got to say something, Amy. I do know, obviously, that your chat room's on my website.
Yeah.
And I have to admit, that's actually making me feel a little bit of pressure to actually try Nano. I mean, I do have a very busy schedule, but there is...
I'll be there for you, Jess.
Now, I will admit, even if I'm not writing, I may pop in or out because, well, I happen to spend half my life on the web.
Yeah, I mean, the thing with Nanowrimo is you don't have to do 50,000 word novel. You can set a different goal. You can you can do something other than a novel. You can write a poem every day. You could write a short story every day or every week. You could do anything you want. It's a tool to be used. It's all you win at the end is the kudos. You get to say, I did Nanowrimo, and most of the world doesn't know what that is. So, don't do it for the prize. You get a certificate and it's a PDF. It's not that crash hot, you're not doing it for the win. You're doing it for yourself. And especially if you want to write novels, the best thing you can do is write one, finish it, and then you know that you can do it. And then you go to write the next one. You're like, you don't face anywhere near the same amount of self-doubt because you've done it before. You know you can do this because you already did it. It's like doing a... walk over backwards when you're doing gymnastics when you're 8 years old. Like, you can't do it until you do it. And then you know you can do it. From now on, you can do it. Yeah.
What were you saying, Judy?
Well, I must have a bit of a brain fart because I just can't remember what I was going to say.
It was something about writing, Nanowrimo and the goal setting and writing.
Yeah, it's basically Nanowrimo, in my mind, is not actually about 50,000 words. Yes, that is the target that the organizers have made. But in my mind, it's actually about creating a habit for writing. It's about looking at the little things that you can do every day that will help you towards writing every day. Instead of going and surfing the internet or going onto your social media all the time, well, while you're having that cup of coffee, just make some notes and start thinking about whatever bits and pieces you want to do. If you want to write poetry, then write a poem. There's just so many things that you can do that are just little habits that you can develop. I mean, they say it takes anywhere between 21 and 62, or basically about 60 days to form a habit.
To develop a habit, yeah.
Yeah. And there's 30 days. It is in November. So if you start on the 1st of November trying to develop a habit for writing, by the end of November, you're pretty much there. You've pretty much created that habit. And that, in my mind, is what really Nanowrimo is actually about. It's not about the word count. It's finding the little things that you can do. And if you don't write 50,000 words, it doesn't actually matter. The fact that you were writing...
No penalty.
Yeah. It's the fact that you were writing that's the most important thing.
And you don't have to wait a whole year before you can try it again. There's a NaNoWriMo that runs in, is it April and July? Like, they're not as big. They don't get as much, you don't get, like, the cool emails from the famous authors, and you don't get quite the same community drive. But you don't have to wait a whole year to do it again. So if you, like, don't make it, if November just turns to custard, which actually I found out this morning that's a New Zealand saying. So what that means is if November goes badly wrong, like something interrupts the month and it's just not going to happen, don't worry. I mean, you know,
there's
plenty other opportunities.
If they're regular listeners to any of my other shows, either Conversations in Science or my show, or any of the interviews I've done with Judy, they've heard custard several times.
Oh, turns to custard is that's a saying that means things go awry.
By the way,
I had a conversation at the library this morning about is that a New Zealand saying or is that an English saying? Because when New Zealanders are writing books for an international audience, they have to become quite aware of whether or not their phrases are and their words are like unique New Zealand slang. Because you just confuse everybody.
All right.
I had just one quickly. The one I had, running around with your head cut off. You know,
like
we talk about that one, and we'd say
like
the chook. The chook has lost its head, but of course I discovered that chook is actually an Australian slang for chicken.
Oh, right.
I was like, oops.
Yeah, and there's lots of slang that Australians and New Zealanders share, but then there are things that we do differently, and we are so aware of them. But the rest of the world thinks that we are, in fact, all one big country, so, yeah.
Well, I have to admit, I have a much better grasp on geography than to think Australia and New Zealand are the same country. But I will say, all right, you two, you've talked me into it. I will try Nano again this year. It's been about 3 years. I'm sure I can.
Judy and Amy bullying people into writing since 2000.
Oh, yeah.
I will try. I make no promises because here in the States, we do have at least one massive planned interruption in the month of November. It's called Thanksgiving.
Oh, wait.
Yeah.
Oh, also an election. But yeah, Thanksgiving. I was going to say. Actually, Thanksgiving is brilliant. Sorry, but unless you have like a massive family do, Thanksgiving is a long weekend, a week before the end of the month. Or a few days before the end of the month, which is a brilliant opportunity to like lay down an awful lot of words in a short period of time.
Unless you're cooking for 25 people, like I happen to be this year.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe not so much.
And
here, of course, it's the beginning of the exam season. So all through November, I'm a relief teacher during the year, but at the end of the year, there's no more relief work. So I do exam supervision. So the school exams start on the 10th of November and finish at the end of the month, and I'm going to be supervising exams as my paid job during the day, like every other day for that whole period. But yeah, it is not an ideal time of year for New Zealanders because high school students and university students have exams. And the rest of because it's building up to our summer holiday, that's like summer vacation starts in a couple of weeks into December before Christmas. So everything's wrapping up and there's Christmas parties and there's just, it all comes, like the build up to summer vacation plus the build up to Christmas is all rolled into one big thing here, which is probably mind boggling to the other hemisphere, but that's normal here. And it just is, it's a crazy time of year to try and do this. And also the weather's getting better, so you don't want to be sitting inside, whereas in November in the States, from the one November I spent in the States, inside was really the only option.
That would depend on where you are in the country. If
I was in Wyoming.
Yeah, that's called you're indoors, period, end of discussion. Unless you want to write...
If you're going outside, the only thing that can touch the air is your eyes, because everything else is going to be covered up.
Unless you want to build an igloo Indoors is your only option. All right. I will try it. No promises on how many words I'll get because I'm actually cooking for 25 this year. I've got the in-laws coming. I've got some single soldiers that aren't going home for the holiday. I've got a house full. So I can't make any promises.
How are your delegation skills?
Pretty good. But that doesn't mean it will all get done by other people because when it comes to cooking, I'm a bit of a perfectionist.
Okay.
So, and then
I'll tell you what, Jess. I will ask you we'll make it every 3 days. Have you written at least a sentence?
A sentence I can manage. A sentence, yes, I can do that.
I think we went to this, Judy and I were at these writing workshops on the weekend, and one of them talked about one of the ways to form a habit is to do something for 30 seconds. So the key trick is to make a very, very specific time during the day. So after you have done X thing that you do every day, you will do 30 seconds of, so it could be anything. It could be flossing your teeth. It could be a Pilates stretch. It could be writing for 30 seconds. Whatever it is, you start. But you have to do it at a time where there is space for it to grow. Because when you do it for 30 seconds every day, pretty soon you'll start doing it for longer than 30 seconds. But the first day, and for as long as you like, it only has to be 30 seconds. At any day, it only has to be 30 seconds. Because that's so easy to start. Apparently, it's a really good way to form a new habit.
All right, I will start writing after I get off the air because I'm still at my keyboard.
Nice.
And my computer's up and running, and I'm often listening to another show, but I'm not on KLRN Radio. I'm often listening to one of the other shows, but I'm not necessarily actively. I've had it with the web. I'm not ready to deal with social media yet, except the odd tweet or something. But I will start writing after my show every day for at least 30 seconds, at least for the month of November. No promises after that.
Yeah, I mean, my issue in the morning is I often look at I look at my email, right? I look at my Facebook and my Twitter before I start writing, and that's like, I lose an hour. You know, if I do my writing first, even if I only did it for 30 seconds, if that was the first document I opened, chances are good it won't be 30 seconds. I'll stay there for 20 minutes or half an hour, finish the chapter, whatever, Like, I will stay there once I've started, and then I'll be like, okay, timer on, 10 o'clock, time to check my emails. But once I've already started, then it's so much easier to go back to the writing because you've already got it kind of going on in your brain. Yeah.
Go us, Amy. That I think that makes it about maybe 4 or 5 that we've managed to convince over the last couple of weeks to do. We're doing well.
Yeah. It's going to be fun. It's going to be good. We've got lots of writings booked in at libraries and cafes. No, it's going to be fun. I think the big part of it is the community because writing is so solitary, and it is really nice to see people who are further ahead than you are, closer to publication or closer to finishing a book or just writing, better because they've been doing it for longer. And just to see them is encouraging because it shows you that, if you keep at it, you'll get better. You'll get closer to where you want to be. And also writing alongside someone who's not doing so well or isn't so far along and maybe they're just starting out or they've just finished their first book and they're not sure if they're going to rewrite it or start on their second. Working alongside someone who's back a bit on the journey makes you realize how far you've come. So this isn't just true of writing, of course. This is like this is true for all community. It's part of the value of community is being around people who are further along and not as far along as you are. It puts everything in perspective and you get to contribute so you're not... Yeah, there's so much value in it. In the writing community of Nanowrimo, Judy talked about one of the values of it being the writing habit, and I would say that the other value of it is the community for writers. I think it's really important.
Yeah. Judy, wasn't that how you and Anne met, was the writing community online?
Yeah, I was taking part in a writing competition that's called Pitch Wars. Pitch Wars is every year, and the idea behind it is that you submit your manuscript to, it's about 4 to 6 people who are a bit further along the journey. They have, they're agented, and in some cases they're already published. And the idea is that they are going to select one manuscript that they're going to help polish to the nth degree and get it ready for agents. So it's looking at to go for an agenting round.
Yeah, you get 2 months of editorial work with them. So my friend Mel has just she won one of them this year, and she has, I think, just till the end of the week to have her final lot of
agent rounds for this cycle start soon. But anyway, Anne and I we first met.
Okay, and Anne's the municipal liaison for Fayetteville, North Carolina.
Yes, and we first met through Pitch Wars, and basically somebody had sent out a message on Twitter and said, who would be up for a support group? And I went, me, please, me. And Anne and I, we were both in that group, and we just hit it off. And I think we've chatted a lot over the time frame. I mean, you were saying that at one point, Anne's quite elusive to get hold of. She's off working and work's blown up, and hey, that's what she's doing. But yeah, she and I are frequently in communication, and there's at least a message from her every single day. She's going, I'm still alive. At least every day. So it's been really good. And so many things have happened. And that's the thing. Doing that connections and building that network, you never know what opportunities are going to come. The writing industry, just like almost any other industry in the world, it's not about what you know, it's about who you know. And having connections is incredibly valuable for your own sanity more than anything else. I mean, your family is not going to understand what sort of obsession writing becomes, because it really does become an obsession.
And your family probably can't give you really helpful feedback on your manuscript either. I mean, long before you can think about paying a professional to edit your manuscript, you're going to want somebody to just read it, some friend or writer to read it and just give you some feedback on where it's really dull and where it's really brilliant and where you've gone completely off topic and where that whole character just disappeared and you never mentioned them again. Like stuff that you maybe didn't pick up or realize you were doing, you're going to want to get that feedback from someone who you don't have to pay hundreds of dollars to, like you do a professional editor. And so another writer is the perfect person because they're thinking about those things. I mean, a lot of those things you know, but you don't necessarily see them in your own work. Like, it's so much easier to edit someone else's work. And with another writer who's at a similar stage as you can swap a manuscript and read each other's and give each other feedback, and you both get it for free, It's you can't really do that with your family. And even your friends who like reading aren't necessarily going to do that for you. Like, they'll probably read your book and tell you a couple of things about it, but not the level of detail feedback that you're going to want, that you'll get from another writer, because that's what they want.
Yeah.
I will say I do beta read for a couple of writers, and I do my best to give them as much feedback as I can. Now, I can't tell you...
that's brilliant, but you have to understand that that's a rare thing for someone to be willing to do that for free and just to give really good feedback. It takes a lot of time, right?
Not when you read as fast as I do.
Okay.
I read on the order of 2,000 words a minute. Now, I have to admit, Anne reads faster.
Oh, it's not just reading, though, right? When you're giving feedback, you're taking notes and you're highlighting or whatever, It's not just whipping through it. It's a bit more than that when you're giving someone
When I read something, I'll actually... See, that means, though, I can get through your manuscript 3 times in a week. Just by... I go to my local fast food place, sit for half an hour, eat my meal, and go through it. And I read on my Kindle. I love my Kindle. My Kindle goes with me everywhere. And I'll sit there on my Kindle and I'll highlight what's bugging me. And then when I get home, I will pull up those notes, pull up those highlights on the Kindle app or on something where I can screen capture them. And then I'll put the pictures in a document and say, this bothered me because blah, 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 blah. This bothered me, but that way I don't have to recreate the sentence and they can see exactly where it was in their book and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Like I said,
you're right. It's not hard work and it's not super time consuming, but it's not nothing. And most people have pretty full lives. So as a writer, when you're asking someone to read your book and give you feedback, it's just another writer who wants the same in response is a really easy way of doing it.
Oh, yeah. And the ones I get are the ones that are usually closer to publication.
Okay.
And so there's very little in the way of
Yeah.
this
They're not
character
rewriting
dropped off the cliff. It's usually this word just didn't make sense. Is there another word you could put it in its place? Because they use technical jargon
Little things
that I didn't understand.
Yeah.
But that's the kind of, I usually read them when they're almost ready to be published. But I do it because I am a voracious reader. I read on the order of 2 novels a month. In addition to and that's published novels, actual professional published or indie published or whatever novels, published novels that nobody hands me and says, can you read this and tell me what you think? But occasionally I will get one that's less well developed and I'll be like, are you really thinking about publishing this? Wait a minute. Whoa. You know, because at the speed I read, I'm willing to suspend disbelief. But like you said in the beginning, Amy, if you're telling me that this character who is an absolute neat freak doesn't start cleaning a messy room, I'm going to go, wait a minute, what's wrong with this?
Yeah, and that's an incredibly simple character trait. So it's one of those things. I mean, editing is a massive topic, and talking about Nanowrimo is probably not the time to, just because Nanowrimo is really not about editing. But although for some people they use it as a month of editing, like they give themselves the goal for the month rather than of writing a novel, of revising the novel. So, yeah, for some people it is a month of revising, but, yeah.
The official goal is to write.
Yeah. I mean, that's the sort of standard issue. But I believe that this year they've actually changed the things on the website so that you can make a different selection for your goal.
Yes, they have.
Yeah.
They have. They've gone through and they've said you can put the badges in, and you can say, you know, traditionally it's starting a new manuscript, a new story, something that you've never looked at before. But this year they've gone through and they've added in a new badge that you're going to, come November the 1st, you're going to do anything but work on a new novel. So there's a lot of different things that people can choose this year as to their options as to what they want to do. So it's pretty cool.
I will say I will most likely never share my writing because I just don't have that goal to get published or anything. It's just one of those things. If I write, it'll be pure and simple to see, can I? I'm not.
See, that's where NaNoWrimo is perfect for you because it gives you that goal, that target to say, can I? And it's great from that perspective.
I do think that writing, like to really pursue being a writer, it's one of those things you have to really want to do it in order to do it well. But it is we do live in a day and age where it is easy to publish a book, so you don't have to be that determined to be a writer. It doesn't have to be like on your heart in order to publish a book. But that's not the same as having a career as a writer, right? So yeah, I would say that it's kind of up to an individual to decide whether or not they're willing to put a book out there that, you know, maybe 10 years down the line they're going to be a little bit embarrassed about. But, you know, I mean, to be honest, that's probably true of people who traditionally publish as well. They're going to look back on their writing from 10 years ago and go, oi. I believe that's the technical term. Oi.
My favorite author is Brad Thor. And I don't know if I know Judy, I know you and I have had conversations about Brad Thor. But Amy, I don't know.
I'm sorry, I can't read Brad Thor. I've tried. I've really honestly tried.
Okay. But anyway, I was actually at one of his book signings, and he often gives talks before his signings, and he was saying he can't pick up the printed version of his novel and read it because he'll find stuff he wants to change or edit. And this is after it's already been published, and after it's half the time it's all his books. 99.9% of the time end up on the New York Times bestseller list. He's got multiple number ones, blah, 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 blah. So he is like the epitome of writer. But if he wants to actually quote unquote read his published book, he gets the audio version.
Huh.
So even he can't read that published work, even from 2 or 3 years ago, without going, I want to change it. So which I thought was really interesting because you don't often get to hear that kind of those kind of comments from such
I've
a
heard
published
that from
author.
a lot of writers, to be honest. I think it's just in any art, maybe any field, you grow and learn over time, and you look back at what you did in the past, and you go, I would do it differently now, and that's fine. I mean, that's normal. That's growth. I mean, it's a good thing, and you don't need to go back. I mean, frankly, with a book, you can go back and change it and release a new edition. And especially with digital books, that's like so incredibly easy to do. But at the same time, no one else is reading it with your eyes. You know, no one else is looking at it like that. If they liked your old books, they're going to love your new books, probably, if you're writing in the same kind of genre, the same kind of thing. If they start with your new books and they, like, I did this with Marian Keyes. American viewers may or may not have heard of Marian Keyes. She's an Irish women's fiction writer, incredibly funny, and she deals with incredibly difficult topics. But because it's women's fiction and the world we live in, it gets like pink glittery covers, but actually like alcoholism, depression, domestic abuse, she deals with all these really tricky topics, and but she does it with it's so incredibly funny. Anyway, so I read her newer books first, just because of when I started reading her books, and then I went back and read her older ones, and I was like, oh wow, you've learned a lot. Your newer books are so much more like page turnery, you know, there's a word for that. But anyway, compulsive. Like, I couldn't stop reading her new books, whereas her old books, I found it much easier to put them down. And she's a brilliant writer, and if I can write as well as her old books, I'd probably be pretty happy. But of course, she's gotten better as she's gotten older.
All right, so as we're wrapping up, Judy, what are your top 2 to 3 tips for someone doing NaNoWriMo this year?
The top tips for someone doing NaNoWriMo.
You can give a couple of them.
All right. The top tips, I would say, number 1 is have a notebook handy everywhere you go. And if you're one of those that struggles to write in a notebook, then have your phone handy with a dictaphone app or something like that. Because an idea, while you're walking around and noticing, you might see something, or you may have heard the way somebody says something, and it sparks an idea, and you don't want to forget it. So I would definitely write it down. Because inspiration will strike anywhere, literally. You never know. Get that idea down so you don't lose it. The other tips I might have for somebody doing NaNoWriMo, don't be afraid to say, hi, I'm here. A lot of writers are introverts and they don't actually like socializing with other people, but the other writers in your community won't be able to support you and help you through if they don't know you exist. So you have to actually go through and say, hey, I'm here, and get past that barrier. And that might be a big barrier. That might be the goal that somebody has is to actually meet other writers. That might be their goal for the month. Do the community thing, because the community thing is just so much. You won't regret it.
Yeah, I would definitely recommend just aiming to get along to one write-in fairly close to the beginning of the month, like a physical write-in, because you might decide that you absolutely love them and desperately want to go to lots more. So don't wait till the last week, but try to get along to one in that first week or so, just to experience it. And then this is the other half of that tip: don't spend your time there talking. Like, actually get some writing done at a write-in and see how that goes for you. It is quite tempting, especially when there are people you haven't met before and it feels rude to kind of ignore them and write. But say hello and then, then get to it and, have a coffee an hour later and, say hello again. But yeah, it takes a certain amount of discipline to actually write when you're with other people, but it is really, really rewarding. So that would be one of my tips. And the other one I thought of was just to kind of think about, before we hit November, think about your life and your habits and know yourself, know what kind of rewards work for you. Is a giant bag of M&Ms and having a handful of M&Ms every 1,000 words going to help you? Or are you going to have a massive sugar crash and then you're not going to get any more work done that day? Everybody's different, and some people it'll be a different food thing. It doesn't have to be a food thing. It could be make yourself a playlist of your favorite movie soundtracks to listen to while you write, or set yourself up for success. So think about the things that are going to be obstacles for you, what's going to stop you from getting this done, and then prepare yourself to deal with that so that you have the best chance of getting to your goal, whatever that goal is.
All right, well, I actually have to tell you something about how I had to force myself. When I first started my show, it was my regular show, it was a half hour once a week. My first show probably took me 3.5 hours to prepare for. No joke. Then shortly, within 3 or 4 episodes, I'd outgrown the half hour and went to an hour. Within a month or two, I was actually doing every day, 5 days a week, my regular show. And then, but I found that I actually had to kind of reward myself for actually doing my show prep properly. So I actually did a sticker chart.
I've totally done this.
And so every time I would actually properly prepare for a show, I'd get a sticker on the chart. And then after I collected so many stickers, I'd get a bigger reward.
Nice. I had a calendar sitting beside my desk in our old house, and I would stick stars. Like, I had different colored stars for different things, and I had one that I got for doing an hour of editing, one that I got for doing, I think it was a silver star for doing an hour of editing, a red star for writing 500 new words, and a blue star for physical exercise, and I think a gold star was for doing, like, career-related submissions or blogs or anything, like, to do with writing and focus, not just faffing around on social media. And, like, just, I guess because I'm at home, well, not all the time, but I'm at home, and it often gets to the end of the day, and I've done a lot of work, but I don't really feel like I have anything to show for it because I'm not printing every day. I'm not, getting good news every day. It doesn't always feel like I'm making progress, but it's nice to mark down, to have something to show. Oh yeah, I did actually do 2 hours of editing and I wrote 1,000 words, so that's an awesome day. Yeah, the sticker chart is not a silly idea. Plus it's pretty.
They can be pretty. All right. So Judy, since I know while I gave you the web space, I know you're the one that's kind of masterminded the chat room and everything. Why don't you explain what the chat room on my website's all about? And I will say my website is jessiescoffeeshop.com. Judy, take it away.
Okay. So there is a special website of jessiescoffeeshop.com that has been set up as a chat room for the Nanowrimo. It has been set up and is being used by throughout the world. We have emails from North Carolina, from California, from Australia and New Zealand, all taking part to do virtual write-ins as part of this chat room. It is open to everyone. You don't have to come from just one of our regions. If you are around and you're listening, you want to take part, you are more than welcome. To sign into the chat room, you just need Facebook, Twitter, Google, Tumblr, Instagram. There was Chatwing. There was so many different options to choose from. So it is literally just pick one and sign in. You don't need a special account for it. It's fantastic.
You don't even need to actually be doing Nanowrimo, to be fair. Like, you could just be writing. Or not.
Yeah, or not. We don't care. Just come in and join, and it's going to be so much fun. It's going to start getting hopping. There are people playing around with the room now, but it's going to start getting hopping in literally, 6 days' time. It's not far away. Oh my God, it's not far away, Amy.
I know. Boy. I need to get my edits done so that I can, start my new project.
So you can find the chat room on jessiescoffeeshop.com. There is a link on the main page that will take you straight to it, and it's the Inter Nano Chat. There is also going to be on the page, you will have a whole bunch of different calendars that are there, which is actually the same calendar, but it's all in different time zones. So you will know when there will be a scheduled virtual write-in on the calendar, and it's just listed in the different time zones so everybody can join in. I think there's Eastern time, Pacific time, there's Eastern Australian time, New Zealand time, and I'm pretty sure we've got GMT there as well. So everything is going to be so cool from that perspective. Everyone's welcome.
Yeah, the more the merrier.
Yeah.
All right. Who knows? Maybe I'll even pop in, whether I'm writing or doing show prep or whatever. I may pop in and say hi. You never know what I'll do. Half the time, I don't know what I'm going to do. All right. Amy, as I like to do with all my guests at the end of a show, do you have a blog, social media, any social media contact information you'd like to give out if people want to reach out to you, either for writing advice or just to say hi or just say, hey, heard you on the radio?
Of course. So I'm Amy Paulison, which is spelled Paulussen. It's a very strange unusual spelling anyway. It's not often not a common spelling of Paulison, considering it's just said the way everyone says Paulison. I blame my Dutch husband. Amy Paulison is what I am everywhere, at Amy Paulison on Twitter and Facebook, and my website's amypaulison.com. And yeah. I think from there you'll be able to find everything. I guess the other one is if anyone wants to find the Canterbury branch of the Society of Authors, the New Zealand Society of Authors, that's nzsacanterbury.wordpress.com. Yeah, I chair that group, and we have a really good newsletter for events, writing related events going on in Canterbury, and Nanowrimo will be featured in that, of course. But there's heaps of other stuff going on in the city and slightly further afield. Yeah, so that's me.
All right, Judy, you know what to do.
Right, so, of course, my name is Judy L. Moore. You can find me on Twitter, at Judy L. Moore. You can find me at Facebook, Judy L. Moore. And, of course, I've got my personal website, Judy L. Moore. I think people can start seeing the trend here. I am also a host of Conversations in Science on KLRNRadio, and we have our own email address, so if you are interested in sending us any ideas for the show, or you have a general question as to what you would like to know about science, then you contact us at science@KLRNRadio. And then, of course, I am also a freelance editor with Black Wolf Editorial Services. That website for that is blackwolfeditorial.com.
All right, well, I thank both of you ladies for being here today. And who knows, maybe we'll catch a couple of the other MLs and have them on Coffee Shop before the end of Nano, or we can maybe even squeeze in a mid-Nano update, just a brief round, because I know you'll be too busy pounding keys.
That's the hope.
Just add zombies!
All right, well, I thank both of you, outstanding guests.
Not a problem, Jess.
Thank you for having us.
More than welcome. And on that note, I'm going to pour myself a cup of coffee and sit down with a good book.
This is Rio of Madison Rising, and you're listening to KLRN Radio, where liberty and reason still reign.